Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
Sweet. It's a big statement that comes from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. 1700 hours, a ceasefire has been put in place. Big story coming here on India Today, and this ceasefire has come into effect from 1700 hours today. India has confirmed there is a ceasefire in place. It came into effect 1 hour earlier. The conversation took place between the Director Generals of Military Operations. India has confirmed there is a ceasefire in place. A ceasefire that has come into effect at 1700 hours today. There was a conversation between the Director Generals of Military Operations of India and Pakistan. I want to cut across to my colleague Rohit Sharma, who joins us for more on the story. Rohit, ceasefire in place. America is believed to have played a critical role both behind the scenes and now openly. That statement that's come in from Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think this is something that America has been wanting to do. We've seen from day one. President Trump has said that he wanted to intervene. He wanted to help both the sides. And then today, finally we learned that, it was a long night here in America. There were a lot of calls between Pakistan, Islamabad, and India, including the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and VP speaking with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So it seems like America has been.
That, as you know, there'll be a briefing by my colleagues from the military. The Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
It's a very short and very cryptic statement that's come in from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. There's a ceasefire which is already in place. Ceasefire that's already started 1700 hours. That's 5 p.m. today. The two DGMOs, they spoke at 15:35 this evening, which means 3:35 was when the Pakistan DGMO called up his Indian counterpart and proposed the ceasefire. The ceasefire is on land, sea and air, which means no more will the Indian Navy ships be carrying out their live firing drill and military exercises, naval exercises in the Arabian Sea. No longer will Indian Air Force fighter jets bomb Pakistan Air Force bases and terrorist infrastructure and launch pads, at least not for now. And no longer will the armies remain in a situation where there's ceasefire violation along the line of control on either side of the Pir Panjal ranges. I want to bring in Shivani Sharma, our defense correspondent. So Shivani, the DGMOs will speak again. They usually speak every Tuesday to know what's happening on the other side of the hill and to keep everything under control. But this is a very significant call, especially when ceasefire violations were leading to major civilian losses of life on either side of the line of control.
Gaurav, this will not be the usual routine DGMO call that happens every Tuesday, but this will be a special DGMO call that will be taken up on Monday, that is 12th of May, and exactly little more than after 24 hours of ceasefire that has been announced by the Ministry of External Affairs also, and this ceasefire will be maintained on land, air and sea. We were reporting a lot of ceasefire violation along the line of control where a lot of damage was inflicted on the Indian property. The civilians were being harmed, and now when the ceasefire has been announced, there will be a respite on both the sides. But yes, we have to review this ceasefire if it is being met accordingly or not, and we have to keep on the talks at the DGMO level. So on Monday, at around 12, there will be a talk between the DGMOs of India and Pakistan to discuss the ceasefire and how it's been taken ahead. Gaurav.
Indeed, Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan also with us on this story. We have Sandeep Punithan with me on this big story because this is a day of very fast-paced developments. Piyush also joins us on this. Piyush, this was a very cryptic statement that was made by the Foreign Secretary. There was intervention, we are told, from the United States of America. What more are you picking up from your sources?
Well, Gaurav, one thing is clear that ceasefire has been announced by both the sides, and that happened after the Pakistan DGMO spoke with Indian DGMO, and they have announced a ceasefire. Now, the other level of talks will take place. Another talks will take place on 12th of May at 12 noon. And apart from that, no other talks will take place because one thing is clear that we cannot have talks and terror go hand in hand. Also, it's very important to understand, Gaurav, that the sources within the government have told us that any act of terror in future will be considered as an act of war and it will be responded effectively. That's what the sources have told us. And if in future any act of terror is carried out by Pakistan, then we will respond accordingly. Looking at that, we can also expect more developments to take place in the day. But the biggest development which we are right now picking is that ceasefire has been announced, and it was a very brief statement which was made by Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri.
I want to bring in Rohit Sharma, who joins us from the United States. Rohit, sorry we had to interrupt you because you're listening into the Foreign Secretary and getting in reactions. But tell us what happened behind the scenes. We've read the statements that came from Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, and of course now Donald Trump on Truth Social. Rohit?
Yes, Gaurav, I think, as I was stating earlier, I think President Trump has been wanting to intervene from day one. I think he said it multiple times. And I think over the past days, escalation, I think it was pretty clear that the U.S. wanted to step in. We did see that there was a statement issued by Secretary of State that he had called the Pakistani general last night, my night, your morning, and they were talking about it. And it seems to us over here in the U.S. that they've been able to convince Pakistan to stop this and then go out to the Indian side and say, look, we've convinced Pakistan they're not going to do anything, and we should now proceed to talks. Now, there's also talk about having a future talk at a neutral venue. We do not know any details, but it's a big claim. Also, on the other side of things, I think what we've picked up essentially is America did not want any major escalation in this war. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, he came in claiming that he's going to stop war between Ukraine and Russia. He's dealing with the situation in the Middle East, and he did not want another war. So I think they were heavily invested in stopping this. Okay. And they've been successful. As of now, they've been successful in declaring this ceasefire. Now it all remains on to see if Pakistan follows through and if they do not do any misadventures, Gaurav.
That's a very interesting caveat that you've added, Rohit, because you're well aware of the situation on ground. Our Foreign Affairs Editor, Geeta Mohan, joins us on the show. Sandeep stays with me on this special broadcast. Geeta, you've been speaking to sources in the government. Okay, that's a statement from US President. Let's listen in.
Are they doing the briefing?
This deportation bonus will save American taxpayers billions and billions of dollars. What Biden did to this country can...
Okay, give me a moment. Donald Trump, US President, says congratulations both to India and Pakistan. Geeta, we heard the statement made by the Foreign Secretary, but behind the scenes, what transpired? What's the thinking? US point was that there will be conversation on other issues, but government sources saying no question on other issues. It's only the ceasefire and DGMO talks.
Well, it was a very brief statement. The Foreign Secretary walked in, made a statement and walked out, and they did it in a rush. The briefing was to start at 6 p.m. He came in a little earlier, made the statement and rushed. In all probability, Gaurav, because the United States of America woke up and started tweeting or posting it on social media before the announcement being made by India or Pakistan or the leadership of both the countries in a coordinated manner. So the United States of America certainly taking credit over here for the ceasefire. What transpired, if you ask me, and if I look at the things that have happened over the past few days, I think the clincher was not Marco Rubio talking to Ishakdar, or for that matter, Dr. Jaishankar alone. The clincher in this deal was Marco Rubio making that call to Asim Munir. Because, like we said, the ball was in Pakistan's court. Pakistan had to de-escalate. They had to initiate the ceasefire, that they will stop, because India had to do what it had to do, and India did what it did, respond to Pahalgam. And then the statement on the fact that any act of terror will be considered an act of war was a warning and a deterrence for future, because in all probability, the statement was going to take place. What happened over here? Vikram Misri comes and says that the call was initiated by DGMO. He informed the his Indian counterpart that they're going in for a ceasefire. And that, in all probability, must have happened with all the calls. Two important countries, two important calls. One, the Saudi Arabian foreign minister calls both India and Pakistan. But before that, Marco Rubio calls the external affairs minister and the prime minister of India and Pakistan, respectively. But again, like I said, Gaurav, all these calls could have happened. The clincher certainly was Marco Rubio calling Asim Munir.
Oh, absolutely. And Sandeep, that very, very important clarification that's coming from top government sources. While America said ceasefire, fine, the Americans also seem to indicate that there would be conversations on other issues at a neutral venue. And Government of India, of course, it's again through sources saying no, only conversation is on the ceasefire for now.
Absolutely, Gaurav. Like I said earlier, the Government of India's position is very clear on talks with Pakistan. It will not resume talks with Pakistan unless there is credible evidence of Pakistan dismantling its infrastructure of terrorism, bringing all of the terrorists, all of these global terrorists that it has reared for so many decades on its soil in Punjab province to justice, or dismantle this. We need to see evidence of that happening. We need to see action on all of those terror attacks that have been carried out on Indian soil over decades. All of the masterminds of those attacks are sitting inside Pakistan. We've sent dossiers in the past, Gaurav, to convey our displeasure. Of course, those dossiers have been replaced by missiles and air-to-ground munitions now, and we are at the brink of a conflict with Pakistan. And I think it's General Asim Munir who seems to have realized that a line had been crossed when those air bases were struck, and that explains how swiftly this conflict was resolved by US intervention, Gaurav.
Because this conflict very clearly showed how vulnerable Pakistan's air defenses were, how vulnerable Pakistan's bases were, and this is a conversation that's actually happening even in Pakistan. With impunity, India was able to punch holes in Pakistan's air defense and bomb some of their bases to Stone Age.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And you know, in fact, the thing is that with Pakistan, if you've seen the pattern of conflicts that they've initiated from 1947-48, it always starts with these tactical moves that they make, either in Jammu and Kashmir in 47-48, again in 1965, in 71 in both the Eastern and Western theaters. Of course, they lost the Eastern theater after that. And of course, in Kargil in 1999. They start with these tactical moves, but they never see the plan to its fruition, to its end. They are not able to predict the end state. And the end state for them is always terrible. It either ends in a humiliating ceasefire where the general has to be, someone from the US gives the general a call and, reads the riot act to him, or it's some poor, helpless prime minister who has to bear the brunt of that, as happened with Nawaz Sharif in 1999. It never ends well for the Pakistan military, Gaurav. And, this is something that the military doesn't seem to understand. And they continue fighting, They've been doing that for nearly 80 years now. Because for the Pakistan army, Gaurav, you have to understand their mindset. Their mindset is defeat doesn't deter them. For them, the concept of defeat is when they don't fight India. They have to keep fighting, and they will keep fighting to the end, as the title of that book suggests. And
I want to bring Geeta for more on this as I bring in Piyush and Shivani also into this conversation one by one. Geeta, we've been through this playbook many times in the past, never in the past. There's more breaking news that is coming in. Geeta, give me a moment. There's more breaking news coming in. This is India fighting Pakistani propaganda on Operation Sindoor. Now, there are updates that are coming in. Geeta, I want to bring our viewers updates that are coming in. The stoppage of firing and military action between India and Pakistan was worked out directly between the two countries, is the information that is coming in. Pakistan DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations of the Pakistan Army, initiated the call at 15:35, that's 3:35 this afternoon, after discussions took place, after which discussions took place with his Indian counterpart, and an understanding was reached. There is no decision, top government sources are telling India today, no decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place is what government sources are telling India today. So is this some confusion as far as the Americans are concerned, or are the Americans talking more about their wish list? India and Pakistan have only agreed to a ceasefire, and India says there is no agreement, there is no conversation about resumption of dialogue with Pakistan state.
Well, Gaurav, from where I see it, was there a mediation in the first place? I mean, the United States of America is well placed over here to take credit, but to what end and to what extent? When the call came to India, it was not a mediation where the Americans, like in the past, would say, okay, this is what Pakistan is saying, this is what India is saying, let's reach a middle ground. No. India was very clear that the ball is in Pakistan's court, that the terror factories have to stop, that they need to stop this action. India was only retaliating. On the other hand, the conversation with Pakistan must have been very different, because it didn't stop at Ishaq Dar.
Yes.
The Secretary of State and National Security Advisor actually had to speak with Asim Munir. The decision, and I said this earlier also, Gaurav, and when Pooja was in the studio, I'm going to repeat this to you. There was a joke doing the round, but it's so real when it comes to Pakistan. The decision when Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said that he's given a free hand to Asim Munir to do what he wants to in order to retaliate for the Indian action. The jokes during the rounds was Asim Munir ordered Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to order Asim Munir to carry out a retaliation. So that's the position that you take. Asim Munir had to be convinced by the United States of America. The intervention happened there. The DGMO of Pakistan called India and informed that, yes, they've agreed to a ceasefire. India over here did not want a mediation. So, yes, I think the
Geeta,
Americans
give me a moment. There's more breaking news coming in. We're getting the first reaction of External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Dr. S. Jaishankar has said India and Pakistan have worked out an understanding. The understanding is on stopping of firing, is what India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said. And I want to cut across to India Today's Akshita Nandagopal for more on this. Akshita, bring us details.
Just 3 minutes ago, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Gaurav, where he said, I'm just reading out his post, he says India and Pakistan have today worked out an understanding on stoppage of firing and military action. India has consistently maintained a firm and uncompromising stance against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. It will continue to do so, making it very clear that a ceasefire doesn't translate at any point to us changing our stand on terror or on Pakistan sponsoring terror. And that particular second para, very important in his statement. The other aspect of what I'd like to also show you, Gaurav, at this point is a message that's come out from the government. This is from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting on Operation Sindoor updates and propaganda that's being put out on this. I'll just quickly read this out for you because this is extremely important too. The message reads, stoppage of firing and military action between India and Pakistan was worked out directly between the two countries. And here, this is the important bit right here, this point that I'd like to highlight. It says the Pakistan DGMO initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and understanding was reached. Let's also highlight the third point. No decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place. This is a clear message that's coming from the government. Again, I'd like to highlight that the message is that the Pak DGMO, the Pak military officer, reached out to us. There was a conversation this afternoon and only one issue was discussed. No decision to hold talks on any other issue at any other place. This is the very important message also that we have to put the spotlight on here from the Indian government on the manner in which this ceasefire was made possible because of an outreach from Pakistan.
Okay, significant very, very significant. So India is saying, one, there was no mediation. This was a call that came from the Pakistan DGMO to the Indian DGMO. It was at 15:35, that's 3:35 this afternoon, that the Pakistani DGMO called the Indian DGMO and said and proposed the ceasefire that comes into effect from 1700 hours, that's 5 p.m. today. But no conversation, Sandeep, on any other issue. So no resumption of dialogue with Pakistan. That's very clear.
It's very clear indeed, Gaurav. Very cryptic statement from the Foreign Secretary, a very terse statement on the fact that it was just going to be limited to a ceasefire and not about any other talks with Pakistan. So the government of India is very clear on its stance that talks and terror won't go hand in hand. But you know, the important thing to realize, Gaurav, is that when we were talking earlier about back channels between India and Pakistan, you know, General Asim Munir shut down the most important back channel with India when he appointed the DGISI, Asim Malik, Lieutenant General Asim Malik, as the National Security Advisor, which means he closed all avenues of a back channel. In the past, you had a civilian NSA who was actually running the back channel with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. But in this case, it was the military that took over even the back channel, leaving no room for doubt who the real boss in Pakistan was. That's General Asim Munir.
Okay.
And that is the reason that Foreign Secretary Marco Rubio had to call, Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to call Asim Munir, dial him to dial down the tensions.
And let me quickly bring into this conversation my colleague Shivani Sharma. And Shivani was and has been at the line of control, which was red hot till just some hours ago. Has that ceasefire already taken effect? Have instructions been passed down the chain of command? And we're told it's already in effect from 1700 hours, that's 5 p.m.
Gaurav, exactly. We are not hearing any kind of shelling now because till morning, early today, we were hearing that ceasefire violations, the artillery gunfires that were going along the line of control. But there is peace. But we must also bring in a point out here, the correlation between the policy change announcement by the government that any act of terror would be accounted as an act of war, and also the air bases that were destroyed by the Indian armed forces, the damage that was inflicted, after which Pakistan decided to talk to India. That mediation was there, and then this ceasefire was announced. So this is a clear indication that how and what was the impact of India's strikes on Pakistan, to which this truce has followed after a lot of deliberations. But the initial point was how India retaliated, the strong response from India, and the ceasefire violations also that were going on, they were responded in a strong manner by India, and after which the DGMO called Indian side, and the mediation of US and followed by the ceasefire has been announced now.
Okay, so the ceasefire is in place even as we speak. The Ministry of External Affairs, a statement has been made. I believe, Piyush, that the Ministry of Defense also has a word coming in, especially to give details of the conversation that took place, which was initiated by the Pakistani DGMO, because India had made it very clear. India had made that message conveyed. India had conveyed that message and made that point after Murid Ke and Bahawalpur and Sialkot and 9 locations all along the ALC and the IB were bombed. That terror was being punished. Pakistan chose to escalate. India just carried out more punitive strikes, demonstrative but not escalatory. India said it is for Pakistan to de-escalate. So the DGMO's call from Pakistan, is that being seen as Pakistan initiating de-escalation?
Well, Gaurav, if you go by the message which we have conveyed to the world, that at 3:35 today, it was Pakistan DGMO who initiated the talks with India, and ceasefire after then was announced, and after that both the countries agreed to have immediate and full ceasefire. Look at the message which we have sent, that we never wanted to have any kind of escalation. We wanted only to punish the terror which has been sponsored by Pakistan. That's why we only hit the 9 targets, and all successful targets were there. After that, it was Pakistan which was escalating, and Pakistan should have earlier taken actions against these terror camps, which it did not, and that is why we had to take actions. In their press conferences, Gaurav, we have seen how the government has been making it very clear that India does not want to escalate. We are only retaliating to the provocation which is being done by Pakistan. We also shot down all the drones, all the activities, those were being done by Pakistan, and we had to attack their airbase only because they were trying to attack our cities, they were trying to attack our military installations. So one thing is clear, that Pakistan had to come forward and request for ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, and that's what we have agreed. And one thing people should understand, that this, even as we have ceasefire in place, but in future, if there is any kind of terror activity carried out by Pakistan, then that will be considered as an act of war, and actions will be taken accordingly. That's what the government sources have told us. So this is clearly telling us as to how the message which we have sent not only to Pakistan but also to the entire globe. In few minutes from now, we are expecting Ministry of Defence also to do press conference, and then more details about the talks between Pakistan DGMO and Indian DGMO will come out.
Geeta, was India able to send across the message that India intended to, that we wanted to send across, that these were punitive strikes against Pakistan state-sponsored terror, Sandeep? And that message was conveyed, and it is Pakistan that finally reached out to the Indian DGMO. Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. That was literally a desperate Pakistan reaching out for a ceasefire, because when you saw the kind of destruction that India has rained down on Pakistan's air bases, including Sargodha, which you just described a little while ago, the runway had been cratered, one of Pakistan's most sensitive airfields had been targeted, the airfield rendered non-operational. I think after that, Pakistan panicked, they chickened, the DGMO made the call, and of course, the rest is history. This will go down in history, Gaurav, as one of the most important breakthroughs in India's war on Pakistan-sponsored state terror.
And I want our viewers to understand this. Yes, the United States intervened. Yes, the United States got both India and Pakistan to dial down the tensions, but India carried out the punitive strikes India had to against Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, not at 1, not at 2, not at 3, but at 9 different locations, including what was considered inconceivable, impossible, Muridke, Bahawalpur, Sialkot in Pakistan's Punjab province. Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I mean, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. My hair was jet black when we started talking about Bahawalpur and Muridke and all of those places 25 years back. My hair is greyed now, and I never thought I'd see the day when these terror kingpin headquarters would be attacked. And they were, seemingly sitting inside the safety of Pakistan's Punjab province, the heartland, which they believed, and of course the Pakistan military believed, that they would never be struck. They were safe over there, the northern Punjab and the southern Punjab, Muridke in the north, Bahawalpur in the south. And that is the big, big message from Operation Sindoor, that the government of India has conveyed its resolve. The politico-military signaling of Operation Sindoor, Gaurav, is going to be one of the biggest messages of India post-independence. We will study this for decades to come, From 1947 to 2025, this is one of the biggest tectonic shifts in India's military policy. The fact is that the government of India has resolved to use its military to punish terrorism and its state sponsors.
And each time, India's used our armed forces to punish Pakistan-sponsored radical Islamist terror. We've seen how India's response has been much, much higher in scale, size, and force, the fierce force that's been used. First, there were shallow surgical strikes in 2016 after Uri. Then, the then game-changer Balakot airstrikes, where fighter jets crossed the LC and bombed across the international border in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, but that was only one Jabba Top Jaish-e-Mohammed terror training camp, one of the biggest, but only one. This time after Pahalgam, Muridke was targeted, as Sandeep said, something that we'd only thought of as reporters who were covering Pakistan state-sponsored terror. We knew about Murid K. We knew about Hafiz Saeed. We knew how he led the Eid Namaz from the Gaddafi Stadium. We knew how he was a very well-respected person. But what we did not know, what we seriously did not know, was that he could be hit even in Murid K. What we did not know, that Jaish-e-Mohammed could be targeted at Bahawalpur. And that's exactly what has happened, Shivani. This is the fiercest response to Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror yet.
Gaurav, every time we used to hear Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Defence Minister, there used to be a very important message that the punishment will be unimaginable. And actually what happened during Operation Sindoor was unimaginable. Nobody would have thought that India will strike these terror outfits deep inside Pakistan with such precision. The measured strikes disturbing Pakistan also and destroying these terror outfits. 200, I stand corrected, 100 terrorists have been neutralized. That's what we got to know through the sources. And actually, this was a big blow to Pakistan, after which it got so uncomfortable that it brought those swarm drones India's way. Once again, they were thwarted with precision and the strong strike of India's strong armed forces with full synergy. So yes, this was unimaginable that happened. And this was also a very strong message for Pakistan.
It indeed was, and in just about a moment from now, I want you to see that room. This is where the Ministry of Defence will be holding. Okay, let's quickly cut across and listen in to Jammu Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah.
पहुंचाना शुरू करें, जहां जहां लोग जख्मी हैं उनका ठीक तरह से इलाज हो, उन्हें भी गवर्नमेंट स्कीम के तहत रिलीफ मिले, और जैसे आज सुबह ऐलान हुआ है, जहां जहां कीमती जानें गई हैं उन लोगों को हम वापस नहीं ला सकते, लेकिन कम से कम उनके गम में शरीक होके उन घरों को हम थोड़ा सा रिलीफ पहुंचाने का काम करेंगे।
उमर साहब, आज आप जम्मू में थे, यू हैड अ फर्स्ट हैंड स्टॉक ऑफ द सिचुएशन देयर, सो आफ्टर मार्च जो अब सीज फायर का है, व्हाट्स योर प्लान?
नुकसान बहुत हुआ है, नुकसान जम्मू शहर में हुआ है, लेकिन जम्मू शहर से बाहर अगर हम बात करें, पुंछ शहर को बहुत ज़्यादा जो है डेवस्टेट किया हुआ है। कल रात को रजौरी में बहुत नुकसान हुआ, टंगधार पहले दिन से निशाना बना है। तो जैसे मैंने अभी कहा, डीसीज़ को वाज़िया हिदायत दी गई है कि वो फौरी तौर डैमेज का जो है फाइनल असेसमेंट करके वो असेसमेंट हम तक पहुंचाएं, ताकि हम इन घरों को रिलीफ जो है पहुंचाना शुरू करें। इसके साथ साथ कई दिनों से अब हवाई अड्डा हमारा बंद रहा है। उम्मीद करते हैं कि सीज़ फायर के बाद दोबारा हवाई अड्डा खुलेगा और हमारे जो यहाँ से हाजी हज करने के लिए जिनको निकलना था हम भेज नहीं पाए, इंशाल्लाह जैसे ही हवाई अड्डा खुल जाता है तो हम दोबारा हमारे अपने हाजियों को यहाँ से रवाना करना शुरू कर देंगे।
भी आज आपने ऐलान कर दिया,
वो हमने जो कीमती जानें गई हैं वहाँ पे हमने थोड़ा सा कॉम्पनसेशन का ऐलान किया है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ अब जहाँ लोग ज़ख्मी हुए हैं उन्हें भी हमें मुआवजा देना होगा, कॉम्पनसेशन देना होगा, और जैसे मैंने अभी कहा, जहाँ जहाँ प्रॉपर्टी का नुकसान हुआ है वहाँ पे भी। ओके, थैंक यू।
So big statement from Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, and he's the man who's on ground. Omar Abdullah, extremely brave in the line of fire. He's been traveling to some of the worst hit areas, and perhaps in Jammu, just moments after shelling, he would go to the house of those whose houses were impacted, visit those people, promise them whatever help he could. And in a situation like this, when the chief executive of the administration, when the chief minister of the state reaches out to you, comes to your house, visits you, puts his hand on your shoulder and says, I will do whatever I can to help. And I've got this from ground zero, from victims who said it was a gesture on his part that they value, and it wasn't just in Jammu. He's visited victims in various parts. He's told district collectors to reach out, whether it was in Tangdhar, one of the worst impacted areas, or in Punch, or in Rajouri. Went out, reached out to everybody. Big breaking news coming in after Operation Sindoor on the 2nd of May. Pakistan's National Security Advisor and the ISI chief, Lieutenant General Asim Malik, was trying to reach out to India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, especially after the action of the last 3 days. Pakistan has been in the line of fire. Ceasefire has been on India's terms. That's very clear. The ceasefire is on India's terms, and we get you details how Pakistan sought ceasefire after multiple Pakistani air bases were devastated. And I want to bring in Shivani Sharma to give us more details on this. Shivani, bring us details.
See, what we are learning through the sources, Gaurav, that right after Operation Sindoor, Pakistan was disturbed and it tried to reach out to India by trying to speak to the NSA Ajit Doval, but the talks did not happen because of India's will. And not only Asim Munir, but the new chief of ISI, the new NSA, in fact, he also wanted to speak to NSA. They reached out to India, but India was not ready to talk because talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. And after which we have seen the escalations that came in from Pakistan, to which India responded, retaliated with full force. There was heavy damage that was inflicted to Pakistan's air bases across Pakistan, starting from Rawalpindi to other places. In Lahore also we had destroyed the air defense systems out there. So this heavy damage not only inside the Pakistan's air bases, but also line of control. We were reporting every day how India was retaliating with full force, especially yesterday when the swarm drone attack happened on India and it was thwarted. Pakistan had to have heavy damages, not only of the property, the air bases, the runways got cratered, but the personnel in Pakistan are being told to have heavy damages. Losses have been reported out there. So this was a big blow for Pakistan, in fact. And then it once again tried to reach out to India, to which after considerations, the ceasefire was announced after certain...
So Pakistan finally conceded agree to a ceasefire. Okay, let's listen in to Randir Jaiswal, spokesperson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this press briefing on Operation Sindoor and related developments. We have with us Commodore Ravi Nair, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh to brief you. With that, I hand over the floor to Commodore Nair.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the Foreign Secretary had said, you're aware there's an understanding that has been reached to stop all military activities at sea, on the air and on the land, and the Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force have been instructed to adhere to this understanding. Since the tragic events at Pahalgam, you're aware that our responses have been measured and very responsible. Details of these have been shared with you over the past few days through our various press briefings. What has also happened is that there is a significant amount of misinformation that is being undertaken from the other side. And as a professional military organization, we thought it is also our duty to dispel those misinformation aspects, as also state the facts of the case as they stand. Towards that, I will now hand over to my colleague, Colonel Qureshi.
Namaskar. अब मैं आपको पाकिस्तान की मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के बारे में अवगत कराऊंगी। पहला, पाकिस्तान ने यह क्लेम किया कि उसने अपने JF-17 से हमारे S-400 व ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल बेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जो कि बिल्कुल गलत है। दूसरा, उसका यह भी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन था कि हमारी एयरफील्ड्स जो कि सिरसा, जम्मू, पठानकोट, बठिंडा, नलिया और भुज में हैं, ये उसका मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन भी बहुत गलत है। तीसरा, पाकिस्तान के मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के मुताबिक हमारे एम्यूनिशन डम्प्स जो चंडीगढ़ और बियास में हैं उसका डैमेज हुआ, यह भी बिल्कुल गलत है। हमने आपको मॉर्निंग ब्रीफिंग में बताया था विद फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर के साथ कि ये सारी चीज़ें बिल्कुल सही सलामत हैं। अब मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि पाकिस्तान के एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में ये बात की गई थी कि उनके सीनियर मिलिट्री ऑफिसर्स जो कि पूरी तरह से ये भ्रामक हैं और तथ्यों से दूर हैं कि पाकिस्तान की ओर से ये झूठा आरोप भी लगाया जा रहा है कि भारतीय सेना ने मस्जिदों को नुकसान पहुंचाया। मैं इससे बिल्कुल स्पष्ट करना चाहती हूं कि इंडिया इज़ ए सेक्युलर नेशन और हमारी सेना भारत के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज़ की एक बहुत प्यारी झलक है। इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान को बहुत भारी नुकसान पहुंचाया, उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स को, चाहे वो लैंड एसेट्स हों या फिर उनके एयर एसेट्स। यही नहीं, इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान की एयरफील्ड्स स्कर्दू, जकोबाबाद, सरगोदा और बुलारी को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाया। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान के एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम, रडार सिस्टम, उनको भी एयर स्पेस में अनटेनेबल किया। यह भी बताना चाहती हूं कि लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल के पास पाकिस्तान के कमांड एंड कंट्रोल लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस और उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स, मिलिट्री पर्सनल्स का इतना भारी नुकसान हुआ कि पाकिस्तान की ऑफेंसिव व डिफेंसिव कैपेबिलिटी को नष्ट कर दिया गया। अंत में मैं फिर से ये बात दोहराना चाहूँगी, इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस पूरी तरह से तैयार है, सतर्क है और भारत की संप्रभुता और अखंडता की रक्षा के लिए पूरी तरह से कमिटेड है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
So several attempts were made by Pakistan on spreading a misinformation campaign, as we have seen for the last few days. There were attempts made to say that our S-400 at a northern base was destroyed, which was completely false, and that it was destroyed by a JF-17, it was a false information. Also that the BrahMos installation was attacked and it was destroyed was false. The destruction of airfields at Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Bhuj, Nalia, etc. was also a false claim. The forward ammunition dump at Chandigarh and Beas are also fit and fine, and we showed you these in the photographs in the morning briefing today. Also, there was a certain different way of miscampaign that the Pakistan conducted by its press conferences, which was conducted in a manner which were completely misleading and devoid of facts. Pakistan has been spreading fabricated allegations that the Indian armed forces have targeted mosques. Let us make this very clear here that India is a secular nation and the Indian armed forces are a reflection of our constitutional values. We hold every place of worship of all faiths in the highest regard. Our operations have been aimed exclusively at terrorist camps and facilities being used for anti-India activities. No religious sites, I repeat, no religious sites have been targeted by the Indian Armed Forces. Over the past few days, as we have seen, Pakistan has suffered very heavy and unsustainable losses after it has given us an unprovoked attack on our installations. It has suffered losses in both land and air. There has been an extensive damage to the crucial Pakistani airbases like Skardu, Sargoda, Jacobabad and Bholari. In addition, a loss of AD weapon system and radars made the defense of Pakistani airspace untenable. Across the line of control, extensive and precise damage to military infrastructure and command control centers and logistic installations. In addition to that, 2 military personnel had led to complete breakdown of its defensive and offensive capability and also Pakistani morale. Sir.
In conclusion, let me reiterate that whilst we will be adhering to the understanding that has been reached today, that is the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force, we remain fully prepared and ever vigilant and committed to defending the sovereignty and integrity of the motherland. Every misadventure by Pakistan has been met with strength, and every future escalation will invite a decisive response. We remain fully operationally ready to launch whatever operations may be required in defense of the nation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. With that, we come to the closure of this briefing. Thank you very much.
Big statement there being made by the Ministry of Defence. We heard Commodore Ravi Nair, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, and Wing Commander Vyomika Bakshi and Vyomika Singh. The statement that was being made was no religious places were targeted. India is a secular country. India is a constitutional democracy. No religious structure was targeted. Only terrorist camps were targeted. But what a significant point that was made. Apart from that long list of airfields that we told you about that had been devastated, the Ministry of Defence said even airfields like Skardu is in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Skardu is actually opposite Leh, Kargil area in Ladakh, which is part of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The Skardu airfield was devastated. The Jacobabad is a very significant F-16 base. And remember, India Today told you first on 5 Live. India Today had that information that Pakistan's Jacobabad airfield had been destroyed. It's now been officially confirmed. India Today news break confirmed by the Ministry of Defence. Sargodha destroyed. Pakistan's command and control structure destroyed. Pakistan's radar stations destroyed. Pakistan's air defense systems destroyed. Massive loss to military personnel in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and also to terrorists in Pakistan. So very significant point. And I want to bring in India Today's Sahil Joshi, my colleague, who joins us for more on this big story. Sahil, this is India inflicting unaffordable costs to a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror. Multiple airfields from Skardu to Chaklala to Bahawalpur and around completely decimated.
Well, it clearly looks like that before the ceasefire, agreeing for the ceasefire, India has made it very clear that any act of terrorism will not be taken lightly and it will be considered as act of war. And that's what India has made it very clearly. One more important thing that, when the India, we heard that there is going to be a press conference of External Affairs Ministry. It was very clear that there was some talks going on about ceasefire. And before that, India had to strike on Pakistan very hard. And that's what we heard a while back, that how they have destroyed their airfields, radar system, as well as the arms depot. Most of the loss has been inflicted on Pakistan at this point of time. And finally, then after that, when India could get its point through Pakistan that they will not accept to any kind of terrorist act, after that, the ceasefire has happened. It seems that now, because the DGMO have already spoken, and on 12th of May, they are going to have another meeting. So we'll have to wait and see that whether Pakistan actually is trustworthy of going for the ceasefire and they really stop this cross-border terrorism. That is what is yet to be seen.
This is actually a massive blow to Pakistan's war-fighting capabilities and massive costs being imposed on Pakistan's military terror infrastructure. So if we were to draw a list in the past several days since the Pahalgam terror strike by Pakistan, Pakistan has lost the Bahawalpur Terrorist Training Center. Pakistan has lost the Muridke Terrorist Training Center. Pakistan has launched the Sialkot Hizbul Mujahideen Center. Pakistan has lost at least 5 terror training camps, staging camps and launch pads. But this is just the loss that the military jihad complex as in the terror complex has lost. Now let's come to the military losses.
I will add
that
just
Pakistan
one more point to
has suffered. Yeah, I just want to give me a moment. Yeah, go on, Sahil. Yes, completely.
No, I just wanted to add one more point.
Yes.
That, India has made it very clear to Pakistan that even if you are running a terror camp from your heartland, say Punjab,
yes,
you will not be spared. Because this is for the first time India is stuck inside Pakistan's heartland, that is Punjab, 100 kilometers inside the international border. And that is, I think, is going to be a very important and clear message.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to bring in India Today's Akshita Nandagopal, who joins us for more on this story. Noor Khan Airbase, Murid Airbase, Rafiqi Airbase, Rahim Yar Khan Airbase, Skardu Airbase, Jacobabad Airbase. This is devastation of Pakistan's war-fighting capabilities and especially their air power, Akshita.
Very true, Gaurav. You know, there's a reason that you had the first outreach by Pakistan for a ceasefire because of the impact of Operation Sindoor. And we'll just run you through what makes this operation so historic. It's India's most significant military action within Pakistani territory in over 50 years. What we've seen in the last 3 days has been unprecedented, and we went deep into Pakistan. We're talking about several locations, and this is what we mean by that. You had Rawalpindi, Karachi, Lahore all being hit, and the fact that we hit the army headquarters of Pakistan, the fact that we didn't do just one strike there, but 2-3 strikes in Rawalpindi itself tells you why Pakistan wanted this ceasefire. It's also the first time we've seen a joint operation. The army was involved, the IAF was involved, Navy was involved with going ahead and carrying out naval exercises in the Arabian Sea as well. So since the 1971 war, over 50 years, this is the first time that you had this kind of synergy between our forces in taking on Pakistan. Coordinated strikes on Pakistan with one clear message, with one clear attempt to wipe out terror from Pakistan. So we targeted JAM, we targeted Lashkar, we targeted Hizbul. Precision strikes executed inside a nuke-armed enemy nation for the first time. We ensured that we hit every target we wanted. Pakistan attempted to counter. We know how that went, completely unsuccessful. The fact that we managed to pull it off, of targeting exactly who we wanted without any other casualty. First offensive where multiple high-value targets were hit simultaneously. And we've been reporting, you Gaurav, have been reporting about how several of these high-value terror targets have also been eliminated as India wanted. Long-range precision weapons, the Scalp missile was used in the first phase of Operation Sindoor. The Hammer smart bombs were deployed, again used in the first phase of Operation Sindoor to target those terror camps. And we did it with utmost precision. Loitering munitions, essentially kamikaze drones that India had used, were also used to hit terror infrastructure. And those videos also was put out by our forces as evidence that we hit terror camps and nothing more in Pakistan. India struck deep into Pakistan, Punjab for the first time since 1971, and this is hugely significant that we went right in, we struck targets and ensured successful precision strikes well deep into Pakistan, so much so that we reached also Pakistan, Punjab. Now it was strategic locations, Muridke, Bahawalpur, Sialkot, unheard of, unprecedented. that there's ever been a strike in places like Muridke and Bahawalpur, because these are core terror areas. Bahawalpur, JAM headquarters, we know of course that Muridke's and LET headquarters, never have we seen strikes there. And this time India hit out as part of Operation Sindoor. Scope of cross-border operations also escalated. And that's something we saw on the ground in the last 3 days. Shift from infra-focused strikes to terror leadership decapitation. This wasn't just about precision strikes or what particular infrastructure. It was about eliminating the very root of terror, hitting JAM and LET where it hurts the most and ensure that they're completely crippled, can never rise back to the kind of influence or clout that they enjoyed right up till now. Shift from infra-focused strikes, therefore, to terror leadership decapitation. And that's exactly what Operation Sindoor was all about. Hitting terror camps in Pakistan and ensuring that terrorists no longer think that they can enter into India, carry out terror strikes and think that they're completely safe inside Pakistan. So the message, ceasefire called, yes, but the message, Gaurav, that we wanted to send across to these terrorists, to Pakistan, has been sent across with Operation Sindoor.
Oh, absolutely. This is perhaps the harshest punishment yet given to Pakistan's military terror network. And look at the manner in which Pakistan was punished. Look at the manner in which costs have been imposed on Pakistan. Yes, there is a ceasefire, but a ceasefire that Pakistan was compelled to seek after Pakistan lost. I mean, Skardu is right on top in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the area that Pakistan calls its northern areas. Skardu was bombed. Pakistan cannot use that airfield till the time it's restored. Come down from Skardu and take a look at Rawalpindi. Rawalpindi is Pakistan's seat of power, and as Akshita was pointing out, multiple times Rawalpindi was targeted, including the Noor Khan Airbase, the Murid Airbase at Chakwal, the Rafiq Airbase, the Rahim Khan Airbase, the Sargodha Airbase, the Jacobabad Airbase. They were all just devastated, and this is a very important signal that goes out to Pakistan. Their air defense system was devastated. Their radars, their missile defense shield, their MQ-9Bs, their HQ-9Bs, their the HQ-16s, and there's more breaking news that we will get you in just a moment from now. Sources are actually telling India today that Pakistan was desperately trying to spread a communal narrative, and that's failed. More Operation Sindoor details coming in. The ceasefire, sources are telling India today, is not unconditional. It does not change any decision taken by India recently about the Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance. Also, it does not change India's zero tolerance policy for Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. I want to bring in India today's Shivani Sharma for more on this. Shivani, India is in a position to impose costs on Pakistan, and it did. I want to bring in Piyush for more on this. So Piyush, not only is the ceasefire not unconditional, it is conditional to Pakistan maintaining peace, point 1, and point 2. It does not change details on the Indus Waters Treaty, and that's so significant.
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. The diplomatic sanctions and the decisions those were taken by India soon after the Pahalgam terror attack, all the decisions remain in place. 6 big decisions were taken, which includes closing down the border, cancelling the visa, asking all Pakistani citizens to leave country, putting Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. All these decisions will remain in place, and there was no pre or post condition of having announcing a ceasefire, and it happened only after the request which was made by the Pakistani DGMO, and a call was made today in the afternoon, and after that itself India agreed to that. The message is clear that we never wanted escalation to happen. We always wanted Pakistan to stop funding terrorist activities, to stop escalating when we were, also taking actions against the terror camps, but Pakistan did not listen to that. Pakistan continued to provoke India. Pakistan continued to send drones and also try to attack our military installations. And after that itself, the exercise was carried out. Now, what is very clear that all the diplomatic actions those were taken against Pakistan, those will remain in place, and there will be no other talks except the DGMO level talk, which is now will take place on 12th May at 12.
Well, does that mean that the ceasefire the Indus Water Treaty is not included in this ceasefire? Because that was the first step India took after the Pahalgam attack. Should we consider that, Piyush?
Well, one thing is clear that the diplomatic actions, those were taken against Pakistan. All these things remain in place. Only one decision has been taken, and that also after that request which was made by Pakistan, that immediate and complete ceasefire is announced on the borders, and that has also been announced by Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our officials from Ministry of Defence. So the actions, be it about Indus Water Treaty or
Shivani
the
joining us with a couple of additional points. Sahil, stay with us, Piyush. Shivani joins us. Shivani, you're breaking news. You're getting us details of the Indus Waters Treaty, and that's off bounds. Pakistan has to come to the negotiations table, fulfill conditions. It has to be renegotiated to India's liking. Shivani, bring us details.
Gaurav, as far as the Indus Water Treaty has been concerned, we have heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in this regard that it's been for years when India has wanting to reconsider and make some developments around these projects, but Pakistan was not responding and cooperating. Now, after the Pahalgam attack, there were certain points that were brought out, decisions, the hard decisions that were brought out regarding the Indus Water Treaty. But again, when the ceasefire has been announced, Gaurav, there are certain conditions that India has brought ahead for the Indus Water Treaty, that Pakistan has to put it according to India. The development procedures have to be there. Only then there will be a reconsideration. As of now, there is no rolling back of this particular treaty that was put in.
Well, Shivani, I have one question for you. Because the kinetic action started after 7th of May. But before that, India did diplomatic strike, as well as India also had the trade strike, economic strike. They stopped the trade with Pakistan. So this ceasefire which has been declared, it is only and only with respect to a kind of kinetic strike which India had done, and then there was a reaction from Pakistan only with respect to that. But rest of the action taken by India are still going to continue, like stopping trade with Pakistan or Indus Water Treaty being put in abeyance.
Sahil, that's what we can perceive, that whatever was decided after Pahalgam attack in the CCS meeting and the declarations that came thereafter, that was a strong diplomatic hit against Pakistan. But here, when the ceasefire has been re-announced, there is no announcements about the rolling back of those decisions. So we perceive, and we will seek more clarity from the government. It seems that there is no rolling back of those harsh diplomatic decisions, because Pahalgam attack was an escalation itself from Pakistan. That's what the Foreign Secretary had been saying. And those decisions were a response of India after the Pahalgam attack. And then the terror outfits were destroyed. So as of now, what we perceive and we understand from the briefing that has come in, that the ceasefire only stands for the military action. There'll be no military action by both the sides on land, air and seas. But we have to wait for more decisions to come in. But it seems that the decisions that had been taken by the CCS remain at place.
So it really actually depends, Sahil, on whether Pakistan behaves. And clearly, India will now renegotiate the Indus Waters Treaty, to the best of my knowledge, on India's terms. I'm sure there will be no World Bank
and we also have to remember that the 4 terrorists which actually attacked on the tourists at Pahalgam are still not yet been caught. And there is no information with respect to that yet. NIA has already started the investigation.
Oh, absolutely. Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu joins us for more on this big story. Kamal, you're on the line of control and you've been through a very difficult phase in the past couple of days. What more are you picking up? One, on the situation on ground, reactions from people, and two, your internal security grid sources, what are they telling you?
Well, there's a huge sigh of relief, at least for the people, and several of them had actually left Rajouri because they were anticipating that in times to come there could be much more heavy shelling. Now, the range was increased by Pakistan, and that is why we saw, whether it's the schools or whether it's the Dangri village, a lot of other civilian areas which were damaged by shelling by Pakistan. Also, what is under consideration is the strategization, and this is where what we know is there was security preparedness. And remember, even if there is a ceasefire, remember the preparation continues to be in place. This is also goes to show the sort of preparedness, because this time around it wasn't a simple war, it was a drone war. This was a use of missiles. So in every possible way, the mechanisms and the military strength of India was tested. But remember, as far as India is, they take away much more at home, because one, there was strikes at the terror camps, the launch pads, killing of major terrorists. So all those actions have been done. But remember, there's also still a Fidain alert. And this is what it really means, because remember, the targets were Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed. And even if India and Pakistan actually are on ceasefire, remember, these terrorists still loom large. And this is what Sahil was also pointing out. Can the Pakistani army rein them in? There are around 140 of them in Jammu and Kashmir at this point of time. What is there? Because remember, as far as these terror organizations are concerned, they've always had a say, and they are not reined in for too long. So that is also going to be one of those factors which will be seen in. And as Sahil was also pointing out, the perpetrators of Pahalgam are still at large. So security forces are yet to get them. But eventually it is going to be important as to how this really progresses. The other part is about the NIA investigation. And remember, that is going to be a painstaking process. It's already so much work being done, but remember, joining the dots, getting not just the perpetrators but the links to Pakistan and exposing them continues to be where it is. And this is where a multi-strong pronged strategy is already in place. But in the times to come, we have to see long-term strategy of Pakistan, because they may just go back and kill ones and twos and eventually start increasing the number, because we've seen it in 2016, in 2019, 2025 now.
Very, very pertinent point. Mir Farid also joins us from Srinagar on this special broadcast. Sahil stays with me. Mir, a sigh of relief, a sense of relief. There was fear and apprehension in Kashmir earlier this morning, but now within 12 hours there's a ceasefire in place, Sahil. Mir.
Yes, Gaurav. In fact, people of Jammu and Kashmir were in fret and fear. Obviously, they know that this will also be played out in battlefield Jammu and Kashmir, and exactly that is what was happening. Now, border residents, as we have been saying, are always the first sufferers, the casualty. They have suffered immensely. So many people have been killed, their livestock gone, their houses, their lives have been devastated in many ways. So they obviously, it will take a long time for them to return, or normalcy to return to their lives. But at least right now they're happy. We're getting reactions from Gurez areas which were silent for years now, but suddenly ceasefire violations had started there. So they are happy with this step of the government of India, saying that this is good sense that has prevailed, because ultimately war is not something that will that really leads to any solution. So that is the
war
sense.
Doesn't lead to a solution. Terror doesn't lead to a solution. If there is no terror, there will be no war. That's the message that India has been trying to send across to Pakistan to stop terror. Big story. There's a key security meeting that's happening in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 7 Lok Kalyan Marg residence. You have Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, the Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi, the Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, and you have the Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal AP Singh, who's on that in that meeting. I quickly want to cut across to Ambassador. Harshvardhan Shringla, former Foreign Secretary of India, also former Ambassador to the United States of America, joining us on this India Today special broadcast. Ambassador, as always, welcome on India Today. Your first thoughts on the ceasefire that's been arrived between India and Pakistan?
Well, I think it was a surprise, let's say, announcement. But if you look at some of the messaging yesterday, we had kept the option open. If the Foreign Secretary had said that we are committed to peace, but the onus is on Pakistan to de-escalate the situation. Unfortunately, Pakistan didn't do it last night. But today, I think they've come around, and there are a number of reasons why they could have come around. One, of course, is that U.S. pressure, and U.S. has exercised its influence on Pakistan to bring them to the table. But I think the other reason lies in what the Ministry of Defense briefing has conveyed to us, that Pakistan's military abilities had been severely degraded. Their radars and their air defense system was degraded. Their critical airfields had been bombed, that the morale of the armed forces was coming down. I don't think they could have sustained this conflict for much longer, and it was in their interest to come to the ceasefire table.
So they were compelled, Ambassador. Is that your understanding? Ambassador, you work very closely with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What was different and what led to this very changed response, this very aggressive response by India to Pakistan's state-sponsored terror? We've been suffering this terror for decades, Ambassador.
No, absolutely. But the difference under Prime Minister Modi's leadership is that 2016, there was the Uri attack. We had a response. Our special operations team went across the border and eliminated a few of the terrorist camps that were there. 2019, we had Pulwama, and we saw strikes across the border by our Air Force. This time, in the wake of the Pahalgam terrorist attack, I think Op Sindoor was a fitting response to that heinous act that was perpetrated by terrorists that was sponsored by Pakistan. And but our actions were very calibrated, that we hit the terrorist camps. Those terrorists that were directly responsible for Pahalgam were hit. The Lashkar-e-Toiba, their headquarters was hit. Some of their main operatives were eliminated. Similarly with the Jaish-e-Mohammed. So I think we have avenged the memory of those of our citizens who were gunned down so mercilessly in Pahalgam. We have maintained since then a very firm and uncompromising position, but at the same time, we have not gone beyond. I mean, we could have done a lot more. We could have gone out and hammered the Pakistanis on all fronts. But what we did was a very proportionate, a very calibrated strike, not only in Op Sindoor, but subsequently in response to Pakistani kinetic actions. I think we had also been very firm in our response. And as External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar said, he said that we will be firm in our response to any escalation that Pakistan undertakes.
Did we seek any assistance or intervention from any foreign power? Did Pakistan seek that? What brought about the US intervention in your appreciation, sir?
So as you can see that, as you could have seen, that our interlocutors were talking, or our leadership was talking to their interlocutors across the board. It's part of our diplomatic outreach. We were in touch with the United States, with UK, with Russia, with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, a number of countries. I think all of these countries have been made fully aware of our position, our approach to the entire situation, but also I think in terms of the influence they could exercise in Pakistan to ask them to, in their own interests, to climb down from this misadventure that was undertaken in initiating the terrorist attack and then escalating the situation to attack civilian and military installations across northern and western India.
Ambassador, the fact that there is no change is what sources are telling India today in the Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance. Now, what signal does that send out, not just to Pakistan, but to the rest of the world, sir?
Yeah, I think the diplomatic and economic and other pressures that we can bring upon and bear on Pakistan will continue to be there. I don't think we're going to relent on that sort of pressure, because we don't believe that Pakistan is going to change its fundamental attitude. The leopard doesn't change its spots, and Pakistan is not going to change its support for cross-border terrorism. In fact, what has been borne out by this incident is Pakistan's own, complicity, the state's complicity in what is happening. Earlier, there was a separation between the state and non-state actors, the terrorists that operated from Pakistan. At least on the face of it, there was a pretense of a gap between the two. Today, there is no gap. We have seen that in the funeral of the terrorists who are proscribed under the UN Security Council's list, there were senior military and civilian officials present, paid actually obeisance during that funeral, which shows that the state is directly involved and culpable when it comes to terrorist action. So
that's such a significant point you're making, Ambassador, and I want you to elaborate on it, and we'll just get those images out of a Pakistan Army general, a corps commander being there, several military officers being there at the funeral of a terrorist. We'll just play out those images. What impression, Pakistani army personnel standing for that namaz-e-janaza, not just in Muridke, but also in Bahawalpur. Is that reason enough, in your appreciation, for Pakistan to be on that either FATF grey list, or more attention to be paid to that 1267 sanctions committee, that Pakistan remains a state sponsor of terror?
I think it makes clear to the international community that the pretense of Pakistan actually, not being a part of that terrorist infrastructure is no longer there. The gloves are off. I think current leadership, the military and the deep state leadership, believe and are part of that effort to I would say, encourage and even use terrorism as an instrument of state policy. And that is why our reaction has to be very firm. I believe there is a consideration that we would consider any future act of terrorism as an act of war. And I think we have to take very strong preemptive and deterrent actions to say that if you do this, this is the response. If you do this, this is what will happen. And this has to be made clear to Pakistan and to all of our partners to ensure that they don't indulge in this sort of action again. We have to focus on our development, our growth, our vision of a Viksit Bharat. But at the same time, in order to do that, we need to protect our security, our strategic interests. And to do that, we need a strategic posturing. We need a policy that will contain and preempt any such terrorist actions. And one of them is very strict messaging, very clear messaging. And we should not hesitate to go all the way. And I think this is the hallmark of Prime Minister Modi.
That point that you make. Yeah, the point that you made, because we are also playing out images of IC-814 hijack. A terrorist in 1999 was involved in hijacking a civil aircraft, an Indian Airlines aircraft. He's finally killed in an Indian missile strike at Bahawalpur in 2025. And you have Pakistan Army giving him a guard of honor, a salute in his burial. And generals are there at his namaz-e-janaza. And India now saying that any act of terror against India would be an act of war. Why is this signaling and messaging so important, Ambassador?
It has become more important now because I think going by recent actions and going by many of the, let's say, different elements of this that you piece together, you can see that the current leadership is very keen to distract attention from Pakistan's own preoccupations, whether it is regions of Pakistan breaking away, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, even Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, whether it is the fact that they are on the verge of economic bankruptcy, or the fact that democracy has effectively been killed in Pakistan, and that most of the elected leaders are behind bars. All of this makes them distract the attention of the public to other issues. You have an extraneous issue to deal with, an extraneous challenge, and so you unite the ummah behind that effort to confront that challenge. And secondly, of course, the success of Article 370, the abrogation of Article 370, the fact that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have decided that there is a dividend, a peace dividend that is much more attractive to them than being out in the streets protesting, something that Pakistan has always wanted. The fact that 23 billion tourists visited Jammu and Kashmir last year, that the attack on tourism and the tourists is specifically to dissuade that and to create communal disharmony in the country. But they failed in all these objectives. I think, we will continue to be supportive of the growth and development of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And at the same time, people have rallied, communities have rallied behind the national effort, whether they're from, the majority or minority religions. I think every Indian citizen has come behind this effort.
Oh, absolutely, because this was a national effort against Pakistan state-sponsored radical terror that our nation has been fighting and has been a victim of for so long. The fact that Pakistan managed to get, at least that's what reports from Pakistan indicate, the next tranche of the IMF loan, does that indicate that the world needs to do a lot more to unite against terror? Because this, in a way, is rewarding Pakistan. Despite being a sponsor of terror, it manages to get, aid from International Monetary Fund or loans. And that this is, I think, the 25th time they're in front of the IMF.
One piece of information that's coming out, but I cannot vouch for that, the authenticity of that, is that the release of this tranche of $2.3 billion from the IMF was also a part of the inducement that Pakistan goes towards, a ceasefire. But at the same time, the remaining part, because it's a $7 billion plus facility, the remaining part will be held conditional upon its good behavior. In other words, that they will not in any way indulge in cross-border terrorism or any activities detrimental to international peace and security. So that could be a part. This is only speculation, but it could be that it is some sort of a part of the backroom negotiations and part of what has brought Pakistan. Part of it. There are many reasons, as I said. Main reason is their own ability to hold the fort in the light of our military capabilities, but this is also a factor that vital money is withheld and held conditionally.
Okay, sir, give me a moment. My colleague Sahil Joshi is also with us, and Sahil has a couple of questions if you have a minute or two to spare, because the situation, given the fact that India was able to bomb Pakistan occupied Kashmir, like all the way from Skardu down to the southern Punjab province, does that indicate militarily India is far superior to Pakistan? Their air defense system is gone, their radars are gone, multiple airfields have been bombed, including Rawalpindi repeatedly bombed. What does this say? And, if you were to read the mind of the Pakistani Awam, how would they be reacting to their army? Ambassador Shringla, that question's for you, sir.
Right. So essentially, I think the Ministry of Defense briefing was quite categorical that we have, degraded Pakistan's military abilities in the short period, in the short window that was there in terms of the conflict. Their critical air bases have been bombed. Their radar systems and air defense systems have been degraded. The morale of the armed forces is very low. And their ability to maintain, and continue in this conflict would also be doubtful. So there are many. It is quite detailed, and then they've given some inputs as to what went into that particular kinetic action and what was achieved by that. But clearly, we were not asleep on our post. Our armed forces have achieved incredible successes. In terms of reaching, as you say, far into both Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and Pakistan, and creating significant damage on their military infrastructure and their military capabilities and abilities. And I think that will have a salutary lesson for them in the future, because we have hit them where it hurts, which is where the levers of power lie, which is the deep state and the military.
Absolutely.
Ambassador Shringla, I have one question for you, because now it is amply clear that the government has also made it clear that this ceasefire is only going to have a military effect. It's only going to be a military ceasefire, whereas the diplomatic action, the trade action, the economic actions are going to continue. At the same time, those terrorists are still at large, and we all know that the Pakistan never accepted that they were garnering terrorism in their in their side. Looking at the scenario, why do you think that the Indian government agreed for this ceasefire after 3 days of this fight?
Well, I mean, as I said, we have larger objectives and larger considerations on our side. I mean, we have a very strong growth momentum today. We have a window of opportunity of the next 20-25 years in which we can really achieve exponential growth and provide a future for our future generations that we could never have dreamt of. We have to focus on that growth. We can't be diverted and go. I mean, conflict would have taken us into a certain level. I think it would have been very, very successful as far as we were concerned, and we would have achieved certain military, I would say, milestones also in what we had to do. I can't spell it out, but I mean, I do have in mind what could have been, the military's strategy. But at the same time, we hesitate from being seen as a country that is involved in conflict. In other words, conflict-ridden. That dissuades investors. That dissuades the vision of India as a very stable destination where people can put their money and expect a return.
Right.
And at the same time, it re-hyphenates us with Pakistan, and that is also their effort. Why should we be re-hyphenated with a failed state? I mean, we have to.
Absolutely.
Stephen Cohen said that we shouldn't even be looking at them in our rearview mirror, and that is where we should be. So I don't think we need to waste our time. We need to contain them. We need to ensure that they don't harm us. We have to bring all our diplomatic and economic leverages and keep them in place, including the Indus Waters Treaty. There is no way we should go back into implementing that. And at the same time, we should make it clear that there is no place for terrorism. An act of terrorism, a major act of terrorism, will be considered an act of war. And not only to Pakistan, but also to all of its, partners and some of the larger states, including China. I think there has to be told that there will be no tolerance.
But do you think that this ceasefire is going to be? We can't speak about the timeline, but do you think that this ceasefire is going to continue? I mean, will there be? Do you think that this can be a temporary situation at this point of time after reaching a particular peak? Because nothing has changed yet. I mean, India's stand against terrorism has not changed, and what Pakistan is doing has also not changed.
Well, look at it this way: that from the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a ceasefire on the line of control. Firing was almost non-existent. So if Pakistan wants, they can be. I mean, we have never gone out and willfully broken a ceasefire, but they have to ensure that that is in place. And at the same time, I think cross-border terrorism will also be a trigger for any action. So they have to make sure that that does not happen. Even during the conflict, if you notice, 9 terrorists who tried to cross into India were killed in Jammu. Yes. So I think this is something that we have to keep in mind. So I can't say, I mean, it's difficult to say whether the ceasefire will hold or not. I mean, that is anybody's guess. But there has to be very, very, careful monitoring of the situation in Pakistan. I think if the US is exercising leverage, they need to absolutely control the fact that that the Pakistani deep state will not enter back into any misadventure. So there has to be a combination of many factors that go into play as we go along in the next few months.
Sir, before we let you go, there's a question I have for you. You've been our ambassador in the United States of America. You know the US mind very well too. Can Pakistan use this as an excuse to once again, if I may, reach out to the Americans, get more spares for the F-16s, rearm, strengthen itself, and then target India once again when they're on a stronger wicket?
Well, I was there in Trump's first administration, and I can tell you one thing. Trump is a doer in many senses. Many US presidents have been talking about stopping military assistance to Pakistan because of its support for terrorism. Obama said that, others said that. Trump went and stopped it. He just stopped it. One fine day, no more military assistance, and it has not been renewed since then. Not a single dollar of military assistance has gone from the United States to Pakistan since 2019. And I don't see Trump going back on that part of the deal. You can provide some spares to keep those F-16 going, etc. But you're not going to give your money to get them to, weaponize themselves.
Ambassador Harshvardhan Shringla for joining us here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks. Is this the strongest possible action yet against Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror? Perhaps it has been the manner in which multiple Pakistani airbases were just decimated all the way from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir to the southern part of Pakistan's Punjab province. And this is really, in the real sense, imposing costs on Pakistan's military terror network. And perhaps that's the reason that'll be explained in our next breaking news, Sahil. Let's quickly take this breaking news that's coming in. India Today now gets you details about how Pakistan sought a ceasefire with India. How did this ceasefire come about? Pakistan's Director General of Military Operations reached out to India's DGMO at 3:30 this afternoon and requested India not to carry out further strikes. Pakistan formally requested for a ceasefire. We are being told US had no role in brokering the ceasefire. It just kept both sides engaged. Pakistan was under pressure. US did ensure that the IMF loan released to Pakistan was conditional to accepting the ceasefire. US told Pakistan IMF bailout is contingent on full compliance, and that full compliance is no support to radical Islamist terror against India. And I want to bring in India Today's Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu for more on this. Kamal, this of course is contingent to Pakistan's feet being put to fire on stopping support to terror. Even today, this morning, Pakistan Army was helping 7 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists trying to come in until the Border Security Force dispatched them to their maker. But I want to understand from you the appreciation on ground of the ceasefire, point 1, and point 2, how Pakistan sought, literally, if I may, a ceasefire. I was about to say on a bent knee, but let's not, at least not today.
I'll come to the last question first. I'll come to the last question first because there's a huge sigh of relief, especially to the civil population. They've been on the brink, especially, because they've been staying at line of control and in the international border. Their tensions were extremely high. When the rest of the country, the hinterland, is looking at the reactions coming in, it's very different. But the ones who stay at line of control, they actually live under that particular threat because there is constant shelling, there is this fire, and this time there were dramatic visuals because also what we saw was drones in action and how the counter effects came into being. But what is important is what really happens now, because what we know about Pakistan is that they have supported the proxy war. They have reached bleeding India by 1,000 cuts. That's been their strategy. They've also have had terror havens. So that is why Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba. So what really happens to them? Because as far as the IMF loan is concerned, it may be conditional, but Pakistan has always claimed deniability. And that is where the problem really lies. Because not only were they attending funerals, the wreath laying was done. So a whole lot of action does indicate that Pakistan administration is hand in glove with these terror organizations, because one, there's no action, because once Pahalgam attack had happened, if Pakistan wanted to do something, they would have done something about it. Instead, they're constantly saying it's India's false flag operation. So that is a total bunkum theory that they came up with, but that's what they're looking at.
Because the ceasefire was not announced by India or Pakistan, it was announced by the US President Donald Trump by his tweet. And in that tweet, he clearly mentions that how his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has worked overnight to work out this ceasefire between India and Pakistan. But at the same time, it clearly can be seen that US somehow arm-twisted Pakistan before releasing the loan by International Monetary Fund. Looking at this, how do we see that the India agreed to this ceasefire after Pakistan requested it at around 3:30, as the government sources are telling at this point of time? Kamal, can you hear me?
If you can repeat that question, please.
I'm asking this. This goes completely against what the US President Donald Trump tweeted while announcing the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, because he claims that Marco Rubio worked out the whole night to work out the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. At the same time, the government is also claiming that there was a conditional release of IMF loan to Pakistan, and that's where the US played important role. So how do we look at this particular ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan?
One has to read between the lines, because remember, Pakistan is definitely looking at that loan. They require it, and obviously they are cash strapped. So this is where really the problem lies as far as Pakistan is concerned, because they want these terror factories to continue. So they would actually abide by what US is saying only for just about some time. But this is their conditional game. Remember, as far as India is concerned, which has gone to tongs as far as this entire exercise is concerned, and remember, as far as Operation Sindoor being launched is concerned, targeting of terror sites. So India has been very steadfast as far as their action is concerned. Meanwhile, it seems that Pakistan was looking for a face saver, because remember, they had escalated the matter to so much that there was no going back. And we know, as far as Pakistani army is concerned, the MO that they have is concerned, that it may not have lasted very long in the first place. But it did come to a point where they were threatening the nuclear risk, and that's something very big. And as far as US is concerned, remember, they did hold the Trump card, so to say, in this particular regard, and that is why they have utilized whatever will they had, and that is why Pakistan actually did agree of sorts, but they were already looking at a face saver. So there is something in between those particular lines.
A face
but meanwhile,
saver for
it does suit Pakistan, because remember, they're saying it's US had intervened.
Okay, it's a face saver for Pakistan because they were decimated completely at various fronts. I also have on this broadcast Shivani Sharma and Akshata Nandgopal. And Shivani, this is perhaps the most severe punishment that's ever been given to Pakistan for supporting terror. The losses that Pakistan Air Force has suffered, not just in terms of equipment, manpower, but in terms of prestige, they stand decimated today.
Gaurav, you're absolutely right. This is the punishment that Pakistan was not even imagining about, and that's what was being said from Indian leadership. And this was a combination of our military power, combination of our diplomacy, and how the world came together, the messaging that was done from Pakistan, for India, from all these countries. So this was a combination for India, the militarily, how we deflected so much of panic inside Pakistan, inflicted a lot of damages onto their air bases, multiple air bases, Gaurav, that were destroyed within no time. Operation Sindoor, that was actually something which Pakistan would have not even dreamt of. 9 places, all under 24 minutes of strikes, destroying these terror outfits that were being harbored, and they were being funded, endorsed by Pakistan. Big, the wanted terrorists who have been neutralized, along with 100 such terrorists. So this was a big blow to Pakistan. Pakistan would not have even imagined that India could do something like this. So this is a combination of India's military power as well as the diplomacy, to which Pakistan had to come to us and talk to us, and now this ceasefire exists.
And Akshita, before I come to you, we have Wing Commander Gini Chaudhary with us. She's a drone pilot herself, and she's been someone who's been tracking India's air operations so closely. She's with us on this broadcast. What is your understanding of India's air operations? And there were some things that we didn't know about until it was just made clear. Even Skardu was bombed, Jacobabad was bombed, Sargodha was bombed. What does this say about India's air power? And may I say, is this air superiority, or in a way, it's virtual air supremacy?
Thank you, Gaurav. Well, I'm Squadron Leader Gini Chaudhary. Continuing this ceasefire thing, well, I'm sure everybody is happy with the fact what decision has been taken right now. But if you talk about air superiority, we, like you said, the bases you were talking about, we have already, targeted those bases. It means they were the bases which were way inside their enemy territory.
Yes.
So we had already targeted their main operating bases. So it shows that we were already on the way of getting that air superiority. As I say, if we achieve air superiority, we
Okay, give me a moment. There's breaking news coming in. India told the United States of America that Pakistani army was using civil flights to attack Indian forces. The United States also acknowledged that Pakistan was a threat to the security of the world. And that's so true. Akshita, if I could bring you in, this is huge, huge. India's air superiority in this battle from Skardu down to Rahim Khan, Pakistan's airport, air forces, airbase, military assets decimated, and India is sending across that message. Pakistan is using civil flights as a shield to target India.
India had exposed just yesterday, Gaurav, about how every time they'd fire their drones, their missiles into India, you'd see civilian aircraft moving dangerously close, getting right up to Lahore, which is just a few kilometers away from the LOC. But having said that also, and considering that many of these were international flights, it's a serious risk to every country. This is an issue, a matter of global security, which is exactly what India conveyed to America. Sources telling us that America was on the same page. They agreed that what Pakistan has done is very dangerous and is a threat to global security. There's no other way to put it, essentially. The fact that Pakistan chose to have their airspace open, have international flights flying in right up to Lahore, so close to where all of the action and the conflict was taking place, they were essentially putting not just their own civilians. We've seen how they were targeting our civilians. They were putting their own civilians and also other citizens at great risk because these were international flights flying through. I'd also like to touch upon what we've seen really on India's version of the ceasefire right now, Gaurav. There's been a lot of talk, Trump coming out and saying that we mediated this. India is very clear that this was initiated by Pakistan. Pakistan reached out, the Pakistan DGMO reached out to us, called us at 3:30 p.m. and said very clearly that we will ensure we will not strike anymore. And it was because of that assurance. There was a formal request. This is what we've put on record, that there was a formal request from Pakistan for a ceasefire. And we've repeatedly said that if they de-escalate, we will de-escalate. We've repeatedly called on Pakistan to de-escalate. So as soon as that message came across from Pakistan that they're willing to de-escalate and they want a ceasefire, saying we will not strike anymore, India also agreed. Now, as far as US's role is concerned, did they really play mediator? Not really. They played a role, however, in putting pressure on Pakistan. And how did they do that, Gaurav? One, the acknowledgement that we're talking about, referring to Pakistan as a threat to global security. Secondly, the IMF bailout package. There were a lot of questions over the last 24 hours on why countries like America did not abstain, did not oppose a package, a bailout package to Pakistan, that $1 billion. Now we know why. Because essentially America told Pakistan that, look, if you don't agree to the ceasefire, we will ensure that the IMF package is withdrawn. So that pressure also worked on Pakistan. So all countries essentially united, isolated Pakistan and told them very clearly that you have to go ahead and agree to the terms and conditions of the ceasefire. And mind you, this is a conditional ceasefire, Gaurav. Let's be very clear about that. India has said that the Indus Water Treaty remains in abeyance.
Yes.
We're not going to be going ahead with trade. All the sanctions that we impose, diplomatic sanctions, that remains in place. So that's exactly how the ceasefire worked out. It was on Pakistan's request, a formal request, that the ceasefire happened.
Akshita, many thanks for joining me. I want to quickly cut across and bring in Professor Brahmachalani, one of India's best-known strategic voices, into this conversation. Professor Brahmachalani, you saw the briefing of the Ministry of Defense and External Affairs in the morning, also in the evening. When you look at this entire list of Pakistan's Air Force bases and air assets that were decimated, from Skardu in Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir to Sargodha to Jacobabad to Noor Khan Airbase to Murid Airbase to Rafiqul Airbase to Rahim Khan Airbase. What do you make of Pakistan Air Force and its assets and the manner in which they were decimated? Was Pakistan compelled to seek this ceasefire?
Clearly, the military momentum was in India's favor. Pakistani air defenses proved to be much weaker than Pakistan had expected. You could see that from the rival duels. The Pakistanis were sending so many drones and missiles into India, but not able to carry out effective hits. India, in return, was sending limited number of drones and missiles, but was able to hit its targets well and leave balls of fire. Given the fact that India had the upper hand militarily, why this climb down by India?
That's the question I was just about to come to. Are we in a way not learning any lesson from history? 1948, we were told we were just about to get back. Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and we went to the United Nations. In 1965, we agreed to Tashkent. In 1971, we did not sort out Jammu and Kashmir. And now, once again, when Pakistan was virtually on its knees, we've agreed to a ceasefire.
You're right. It underlines India's long political tradition of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory has become a recurring pattern, which is why India continues to repeat history. We never learn from history, so history repeats itself. 1948, 1954, 1960, 1966, Haji Pir being returned, then becomes the launch pad later for Pakistan to infiltrate terrorists into India. Similar, 1972, we give away our war gains at the negotiating table without securing anything in return from Pakistan. 2021, we vacate the strategic Kailash Heights, forfeiting our only bargaining chip in negotiations, and then we agree to Chinese-designed buffer zones in Ladakh areas. And now, Operation Sindoor. Operation Sindoor had such powerful symbolism of India's women avenging the murder of 26 husbands. And yet, today, the way we ended this operation after the Pakistanis even fired a missile at Delhi leaves many questions unanswered. I can tell you one thing, Gaurav. History will not look at India too kindly over what it has done today.
My understanding and in my limited understanding is India, we showed our military might. Pakistan now knows about our strategic weaknesses and advantages and our strengths. It knows the weaknesses in its air defense system. The moment it gets this $2.1 billion tranche from the World Bank or from the IMF, when it gets more money, the first thing it will do will invest in better air defense system. We may not be lucky next time. 2 years down the line, it will train more terrorists, probably shift them a little deeper and bleed us once again.
We had so many...
Let's listen in to Randir Jaiswal, spokesperson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this press briefing on Operation Sindoor and related developments. We have with us Commodore Ravi Nair, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh to brief you. With that, I hand over the floor to Commodore Nair.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the Foreign Secretary had said, you're aware there's an understanding that has been reached to stop all military activities at sea, on the air and on the land. And the Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force have been instructed to adhere to this understanding. Since the tragic events at Pahalgam, you're aware that our responses have been measured and very responsible. Details of these have been shared with you over the past few days through our various press briefings. What has also happened is that there is a significant amount of misinformation that is being undertaken from the other side. And as a professional military organization, we thought it is also our duty to dispel those misinformation aspects, as also state the facts of the case as they stand. Towards that, I will now hand over to my colleague, Colonel Qureshi.
नमस्कार। अब मैं आपको पाकिस्तान की मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के बारे में अवगत कराऊंगी। पहला, पाकिस्तान ने यह क्लेम किया कि उसने अपने JF-17 से हमारे S-400 व ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल बेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जो कि बिल्कुल गलत है। दूसरा, उसका यह भी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन था कि हमारी एयरफील्ड्स जो कि सिरसा, जम्मू, पठानकोट, बठिंडा, नलिया और भुज में हैं, ये उसका मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन भी बहुत गलत है। तीसरा, पाकिस्तान के मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के मुताबिक हमारे एम्यूनिशन डम्प्स जो चंडीगढ़ और बियास में हैं उसका डैमेज हुआ, यह भी बिल्कुल गलत है। हमने आपको मॉर्निंग ब्रीफिंग में बताया था विद फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर के साथ कि ये सारी चीज़ें बिल्कुल सही सलामत हैं। अब मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि पाकिस्तान के एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में ये बात की गई थी कि उनके सीनियर मिलिट्री ऑफिसर्स जो कि पूरी तरह से ये भ्रामक हैं और तथ्यों से दूर हैं कि पाकिस्तान की ओर से ये झूठा आरोप भी लगाया जा रहा है कि भारतीय सेना ने मस्जिदों को नुकसान पहुंचाया। मैं इससे बिल्कुल स्पष्ट करना चाहती हूं कि इंडिया इज़ ए सेक्युलर नेशन और हमारी सेना भारत के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज़ की एक बहुत प्यारी झलक है। इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान को बहुत भारी नुकसान पहुंचाया, उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स को, चाहे वो लैंड एसेट्स हों या फिर उनके एयर एसेट्स। यही नहीं, इंडियन आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान की एयरफील्ड्स स्कर्दू, जकोबाबाद, सरगोदा और बुलारी को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाया। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान के एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम, रडार सिस्टम, उनको भी एयर स्पेस में अनटेनेबल किया। यह भी बताना चाहती हूं कि लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल के पास पाकिस्तान के कमांड एंड कंट्रोल लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस और उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स, मिलिट्री पर्सनल्स का इतना भारी नुकसान हुआ कि पाकिस्तान की ऑफेंसिव व डिफेंसिव कैपेबिलिटी को नष्ट कर दिया गया। अंत में मैं फिर से ये बात दोहराना चाहूँगी, इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस पूरी तरह से तैयार है, सतर्क है और भारत की संप्रभुता और अखंडता की रक्षा के लिए पूरी तरह से कमिटेड है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
So several attempts were made by Pakistan on spreading a misinformation campaign, as we have seen for the last few days. There were attempts made to say that our S-400 at a northern base was destroyed, which was completely false, and that it was destroyed by a JF-17. It was a false information. Also, that the BrahMos installation was attacked and it was destroyed was false. The destruction of airfields at Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Bhuj, Nalia, etc. was also a false claim. The forward ammunition dump at Chandigarh and Bias are also fit and fine, and we showed you these in the photographs in the morning briefing today. Also, there was a certain different way of miscampaign that the Pakistan conducted by its press conferences, which was conducted in a manner which were completely misleading and devoid of facts. Pakistan has been spreading fabricated allegations that the Indian armed forces have targeted.
India, Pakistan have worked out a border ceasefire. That's the information that is coming in. The two nations have directly initiated a ceasefire. Pakistani military officer initiated the call. Pakistan DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations, initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. There is no decision to hold talks on any other issue or any other place. There's another twist in the tail. There's another twist in the tail. Oh, big twist in the tail. It's only a ceasefire and no resumption of dialogue between India and Pakistan on other issues is what top government sources are telling India today. Marco Rubio had indicated that both countries are to discuss all issues and other issues at a neutral site. Sources are saying no, there is no decision to hold a decision on any other issue right now. India denies holding talks on any other issue at any other place, is top government sources are telling India today, because the point is ceasefire, yes, so that no lives are lost, but resumption of dialogue with Pakistan is only when credible and irreversible action is taken against India-centric terror, and the Narendra Modi government is very clear about that, Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. Talks and terror don't go hand in hand. That has been the Narendra Modi government's stance from day one. And there is no question of holding talks with Pakistan as long as this infrastructure of terrorism that we have struck so successfully on the 7th of May is still active, up and running in Pakistan. The infrastructure of terror, Gaurav, once again to explain to our viewers, is something that was set up during the Afghan war to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, after which the ISI and the Pakistan army used it to train, recruit and launch terrorists against India, beginning from Kashmir in 1990. They spread that war into the mainland. 1993, Mumbai, you had RDX from ordnance factories of Pakistan army being launched and, targeting Mumbaikars, attacking
Sandeep,
them.
stay with me for a moment. More breaking news coming in, and I want to cut across to Rohit Sharma, who joins us from Washington, D.C., and our Foreign Affairs Editor, Geeta Mohan, joining us with this big twist in the tail, that ceasefire, yes, but no other talks on any other issue. Geeta, bring us details. India's denied holding talks on any other issue to take place. Tell us more, Geeta. Okay, for a second.